You're going live. You bringing us in?
Yep. All right, welcome back to segment 2, January 25th TD show. Had a good discussion about the AFC NFC championship games last segment. We're going to still touch on a little NFL this segment. Before we get anywhere, let's look at our poll. Well, who would you rather have, all things being equal, the Denver offense or the Seattle defense to win the Super Bowl for you? 75% Denver offense, 25% Seattle defense. You can't really go wrong. That's going to be the key matchup all night. The other side of the ball I don't think is going to be as big of a deal as it is when Denver's on offense, Seattle's on defense. It's all going to come out right there.
You know what they say, though?
Defense wins championship.
Defense wins championship.
Hey, the Broncos defense ain't bad, though. But it's not the best in the league.
Top 8 offenses of all time in the NFL. Never won a championship.
Super Bowl. That's true. That's true. This is the best offense ever. Speaking of that, I think we're going to have a caller here that wants to vote on our poll, maybe talk a little bit about what's going on in the NFL this week. Stockton, are you there?
Hey guys, how y'all doing? Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for coming on. What are you thinking about the poll, all things equal? Would you rather have the Denver offense or the Seattle defense?
Well, the brief on that question is kind of interesting because if the weather, as you all talked about the first segment, I found it, very good insight. That weather comes in and it looks like it does here, for instance, in New York Sunday,
Yeah.
and every week we play the game. I think the Seattle defense is perfect, plus I think the Seattle offense is perfect. Now, all things being equal, 78 degrees and 69 degrees, you know what that is?
Well, let's say all things equal, it's 50 degrees with a 5-mile-per-hour wind and slight rain.
Yeah.
Little mist.
I still like that stuff. I still like that Seattle D. I think I'm going to be in the minority on a lot of things today.
I don't know. A lot of people say defense wins championships. I'd say the majority of people probably feel the Seattle defense is what you need.
I mean, and this is historically good defense. As big of a Broncos fan as I am, as much as I love that offense, it's hard to really argue against how good this defense is.
That's right.
I mean, it's one of the best defenses we've seen, especially the secondary. Maybe the best secondary we've seen.
Yeah.
I think that the two teams that San Francisco and Seattle, either one who had won, were probably the two teams that the Broncos would have least blocked the face in the whole.
Yeah.
If you could make a team just out of however a hypothetical team, I think either one of those teams is probably as scary for the Broncos as any.
I agree with you. I think that the 49ers front seven would have gave the Broncos more trouble than the Seattle secondary is going to give them. Because when Peyton starts getting pressured, that's going to cause trouble, and they can sack anybody. There's nobody in the NFL that they can't sack.
Yeah, and I don't see, you get a lot of coverage sacks, but I don't see Peyton Manning trying to rush the throws because I think he'll sit back there and take his time if he has to.
Yeah, if he has to, but I mean, he gets the ball out of his hand quicker than about anyone.
That's right.
And that's another reason, no matter who they're playing, that he doesn't get sacked as often because he's so quick to release. They do so many short timing routes, things like that, and he's tough on that. But I'm a defensive guy, I guess, in that sense.
Something we haven't touched on. We were kind of waiting for this segment to go to it. Richard Sherman's antics following the game, or even during regulation there at the end of the game. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was sitting here with my buddy JP from Monroe County. We both were just we loved it. I know it's not the way I was playing, and it's not the way you bring up probably your kid, or if you coach a team, you're going to talk to Coach Clemens next segment. I think he doesn't want his kids out there showing up opponents and things. But this is not high school or even college. These guys get paid. I felt like Crabtree had done things in the past, as Sherman said, to sort of incite him, to make him angry, get Sherman's dander up. I thought Sherman, he reacted emotionally, and by the way, he did kind of, once he settled down after the game, he sort of came back off, not really off the statement, but he made a make clear statements as far as not being a selfish look, and that's the only problem I had with it is he took away from the team.
Yeah, I think he handled it very well afterwards. And I don't have a huge problem with what he said after the game. I mean, I never played professional sports, but it doesn't matter if it was a softball game or a game of checkers. There's been times when if you stuck a mic in my face after something like that, I might have said something. What I had the problem with was him, coming up to Crabtree. I know he says he was telling him good game, and smacking him on the butt, showing him up face to face. That's something that I had more of a problem with. I think that was more of the issue. I think when you make a good play on the field, you run back to your line, then you celebrate. I don't care what he said after the game. I'm okay with that. What I had the most problem with was the reaction on the field in Crabtree's face, kind of showing him up. That's what I didn't like.
Yeah, that's fair. That happens. I mean, if you watch it, that happens after every tackle almost. Somebody gets up, either for first down, somebody gets up yapping. It's not Richard Sherman.
Oh no, I agree with that.
But do y'all think somebody got to him in between the Aaron Andrews interview and the interview on the set with Russell Wilson? I mean, do you think he changed that much on his own, or that there was a PR person or somebody down the coaching staff said, "Hey, let's tone it down a level"?
I'm sure that someone did. Which I didn't know this until I heard it this week. He was interviewed by Fox Support Days before Aaron Andrews. I'm not exactly sure what he said on that, but he was interviewed right before the actual Aaron Andrews interview. So that was the second interview after the game.
Yeah, I seen a clip of that interview, and it was right in line with the Aaron Andrews interview.
Okay. And then how far after was the Ed Warder interview? He looked on the field too, right?
Right. It was on the field.
Yeah, but he was a popular man at that point.
Yeah. Well, he had made himself a popular man.
Yeah, he was giving a great interview. I mean, he's a forecasting of dream. It's upstanding now. I know the Fox producer was scared to death, he said, which brings up other issues, but he was scared of what he might say.
If you'll notice, he was on SVP this week. And it wasn't a live interview. They interviewed him before going live and then played the interview on the show.
Which one? The Aaron Andrews interview?
No. He had a separate interview with SVP and Russillo this week.
Oh, okay.
But they were sure to pre-record the interview as opposed to doing the interview live.
I got you.
I mean, but in his defense, though, he didn't say anything out of line. I mean, if you're not Michael Crabtree, he didn't say anything to offend you. You know what I mean? If you're anyone else, he wouldn't have offended you.
He didn't say anything about Harbaugh, who he also had beef with.
Yeah, he hates Harbaugh. We know that. He said that in an interview before the game. I heard him, and he was talking about how much he hated Harbaugh. He said that he respected him and thought he was a great coach, but hated him passionately. Just couldn't stand to be around him.
Well, of course, he played for him at Stanford, and he feels like that Harbaugh spotted him. And I mean, Richard Sherman, we're talking about him being the best cornerback possibly in the league, and he was a fifth-round draft pick in 2011, and now somehow he's fifth round,
Right, and if you look at a lot of the great players in the league, they use that as fire. I mean, look at Tom Brady. He's been in the league 14, 13 years, and he still talks about how he went in the 6th round. He still uses that to fire himself up, even this much later and this much success later. That stuck with him. I mean, that's something that's followed him his whole life, and he's talked about.
Yeah, y'all bear with me here a second. I'm going to tell you why that I completely cringe and completely disagree with this whole thing.
Okay.
And I've talked to Stockton about this. I think it was completely planned out. Every single part. He makes a commercial about being called a thug prior to the Super Bowl. And after the best or the biggest or the most watched game of the year up until that point, he creates a moment in which he knows people will call him a thug. He's a smart man. He knew what he was doing. And it's not just the comments to Aaron Andrews or the calling out of Crabtree. It's the conduct after the interception, which he got fined $7,875 for, which is a really odd amount. No, I guess they drew that out of a basket or something. But He did the choking gesture, the whole thing. He created it so they would call him a thug. And then he comes out 2 days ago, I guess it was, and says that now thug is code for the N-word. And the thing is, I don't think he's a thug. I think he's a genius. I think people calling him a thug is exactly what he wanted. And it's one thing to bring attention to yourself and your brand, which I can understand. But to try to create or manufacture some sort of social injustice situation by yourself is immoral. And I've encountered plenty of white thugs. You can call them thugs, punks, whatever. Obviously, we're not going by the book definition here that you're a criminal. We're talking slang. Everyone knows what a thug is.
Yeah, I'll give you a good example of a white thug, Marshall Henderson. I think he's a punk.
Well, going beyond that, we played basketball with somebody who was a thug, and it's quoted as saying that they might steal groceries from your grandma, but at least they would play hard. And you know what? They were white. So for Sherman to bring race into this, I believe it adds an extra level of selfishness. It's just immoral. You know, say what you want to. He had a chance to celebrate the biggest win of his career, give glory to God, his family, his teammates, but instead he deliberately did this with it, and that's the problem that I have.
First of all, please tell me that this guy would not steal my grandma's milk and bread.
He's at the grocery store waiting for Grandma to come out right now.
And she can't make it without her milk and her bread.
Especially today. I mean, you don't get to a snowstorm without milk and bread in Kentucky.
I think somehow the milk and bread companies are manufacturing all this stuff. That's another. They're creating their own market too. I think you're right. It took a little of the spontaneity off of it when I saw the Beats commercial.
I agree.
I love Kaepernick and I love Garnett. I think it shows us a little insight. I don't know if they're quiet, if they're getting like spotlight that. I said it's probably pretty close. I heard Barkley say that every time he goes out, somebody has to try him. You know, and I think he was on Left Card yesterday or Thursday. He said if somebody tries him and touches him, then it's on. And these guys do, hear a lot. But Kornheiser also said, Kornheiser mentioned a very good point I thought the other day. He said there's only, in the NFL, quarterbacks get to be known.
Right, that's true.
Known, But other than that, they're mostly known by helmet and the uniform. Most people wouldn't recognize a lot of these players except for their size. They proved that. I've seen Wes Welker do this. Richard Sherman last year at the Super Bowl interviewed people and about Richard Sherman, and it was great.
Yeah, I've seen that.
They're talking fast right to him, not knowing who they were talking to. They don't get to be known that well without the helmet. I have no problem that the only other cornerback, as Kornheiser mentioned, was to really be known. It was Dion, and Dion was a self-promoter.
Exactly. That's the point I was about to make.
And like I said, it's one thing to promote yourself and your brand, which I would have a lot less problem with. But to come out and try to make it some sort of social injustice situation when it's really not is what I have a problem with.
What about this? A defensive player who I think is pretty well known. People know his face, but for a completely different reason. J.J. Watt. I mean, he promotes himself very well, I think. And he does that through children's charities and NFL Play 60 commercials and everything. I think a lot of people would know J.J. Watt if they saw him, and he's never had any controversy attached to him.
Well, let me ask you this, and it kind of goes back to a little bit of TJ's point. I see these. I think they get off on too. Are NFL, are they asking Richard Sherman to be on these commercials? Or is he a little too scary for the NFL to put on these commercials?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good point. I see what you're saying, and I can see where Sherman might swing this in a year or so back to him being a good guy. He's a villain. We got WWE mode going. He's Generation X right now, and he's going to come over and join teams with Goldberg, and everything's going to be fine at the end. Do you think he's going to swing himself back into a good guy role before this is over?
Well, I think everything but his perception and trash talking is actually good. I follow him on Twitter for a long time before this. He seems other than that, public persona seems to be good.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard anything negative about him until this came out. I mean, I've followed him pretty closely throughout his career. This is the first big negative thing that's came out about him ever.
Because he wanted it to be negative. He got what he wanted.
But dude, I didn't know that. So when I first saw it, Sunday night right after it happened, I didn't realize that. So yeah, some of the spontaneity was taken off of it, but I thought it was a great. I don't know. I like the self-promotion, but with TJ's point, here's the only thing I would say about he saying it's not that the thug doesn't mean something the N-word to him. It's hard if you look at things through. I can't really say. I can't know what thug means to Richard Sherman. And we can't really either. We're not black men.
Well, yeah, but we can't know what it means to society as a whole either.
We just look at things through a different lens. He's grown up in a very different area. Some things would probably mean different things to us than what to him. It's a totally. I have trouble telling someone else what something means to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've got a pretty good example of this. That I want to stay within the lines. I don't want to get a little on the edge here. But I read an article on Facebook that one of my friends posted. What it was like being the only black kid in your class growing up, and there was 30 things on there, and a lot of things people would say to him that were incredibly well-meaning, things I'd even thought myself that I never put any kind of negative connotation, but were seen negatively by those people, the minorities in the situation, things that they didn't like or that bothered them, but the rest of the class, the rest of the school had absolutely no problem with or didn't think anything was wrong with it, said it entirely well-meaning, but was seen through a different lens by those people. So I can see your point, and that's one of the rare situations where I've had a little insight into what it's like to be in a minority situation, I guess.
Yeah, so I don't know. I wouldn't think thug is exclusively a race comment, but everybody sees things differently. Is my only thought there.
Right.
Hey, what about poor Malcolm Smith, by the way?
Who?
Malcolm Smith.
Exactly, the guy who intercepted the ball.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
I actually have his name written down. I'm sorry, I do have that written down as who got the interceptions. They had 2 interceptions, and of course,
get the locker right next to Sherman in that commercial or something.
I know they could at least put him in the background. I mean,
yeah,
maybe he got a free pair of beats at least.
At best, he should have came up to Aaron Andrews and said, "I'm the second best defensive back in the NFL."
Well, he's a linebacker.
Oh, well.
Yeah, well, he happened to be right there. I think we probably all might have made that play, but he was there. So
yeah, it was. Richard Sherman definitely deserves the credit, though. I mean, he put it right there for him to catch. It was kind of it's a scary play to make to tip the ball up that easy to catch.
Yeah,
but it worked out for us.
What about if there's another 49er there?
yeah, that's true. He was there.
But
he had that position.
how do y'all think they decided on $7,875?
I don't know their fine schedule.
Maybe they timed the rant and had a number they were multiplying by.
Battle and Kyler like you out and being when Richard Sherman made the choke sign or something.
Yeah. Only thing I can figure.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. It's probably the best $7,800 he's ever spent.
I agree. That's
really big return on his investment.
Yeah, neither one of us is ever going to get an investment that turns that kind of profit. I guarantee you that.
Never. He spent it well, and he's what we're talking about more than anything else probably leading up to the Super Bowl. That and the weather, which is kind of weird when you got the highest scoring offense ever. A quarterback who's done everything Peyton has. He's getting some of the talk, but a lot of it comes into by Sherman and the weather.
He's just like Miley Cyrus. He's getting what he wants. Everybody's talking about him.
Exactly. That's kind of the way you build your brand these days. Like it or not, you can go back and see a lot of people, that are doing that now.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on this morning with us, Stockton.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. The show's sounding great. Been listening since it started. It's not easy what you're all doing. And you're doing a good job with it, and I wish you nothing but the best as we go forward.
All right.
Thanks for the support. We appreciate it. Stay warm.
Hey.
All right. Well,
we covered that topic pretty well. I mean, it was a big deal. I mean, it's something that needed to be discussed. But like he said, it's taking some of the spotlight off of the game.
Yeah.
What is setting up to be one of the best Super Bowls ever. Ever. Best offense in history. Best defense in the league. One of the best defensive back cores in history. And they're going to be facing off. And we're talking about social issues, which is good. Like I said, this goes back to my point about the weather. The Super Bowl transcends sports. It can affect people's lives outside of sports, and we're risking it. We're risking it.
You know, maybe if something happened to Richard Sherman in his life and he feels the need to come out and create this to bring attention to social injustice, so be it. But I just don't think it was the platform. I mean, like I said, he could have gave glory to God, his family, his teammates for helping him in that environment.
At least in that order. I think he should have reversed the order, then go on your rant. You gotta get your priorities straight. But anyway, that's just one of the big things going on in the NFL this week. The other thing going on in the NFL this week that's causing controversy, at least for me, aggravating the snot out of me, is this petition or this idea that they might take away the extra point. Well, what do you think about that?
You know, the more I think about it, the less I have a problem with it.
Really?
I mean, it's not a whole lot different than we got now. Of course, you're taking points off the board, which is different.
Here's the proposal. Here's the proposal. You get the ball, you score a touchdown, you get 7 points.
Right.
You have the option to go for 2 from the 1 yard line.
No more extra points. No more
extra
PATs.
points. You get 7 points initially. Have the option to go for 2. If you get it, you get 8 points. If you don't get it, you go back to 6 points.
And I think that's probably what people had the most problem with, is taking points off the board.
Yeah, but I do see the drama that's being added here in that this puts a whole new level of stress on a coach in that situation.
Yeah.
We're going to lose this point. Do we get this point? Well, here's let me give you some stats.
It's really no different than before.
Look, there were 5 point-after attempts missed or blocked last year. 5 of them. I get it. Like 99.6% were not. But 46% of the games in history have been decided by 7 points or less. Almost 5% of the games decided by 1 point or less. 4.72% decided by 1 point or less. 4.72% of games, you'd be just saying, well, there's your point. That could make the difference. If you're talking about taking things away, what's more useless than the kickoff? 54% of kickoffs are touchbacks. We haven't took them out. Look, the most ever kickoffs in a season run back for touchdowns, 25. 25 times in a season, people score. The kickoffs are meaningful those 25 times, and you kick off at least 3 times as many times as you kick extra points in a game.
Yeah, you're getting to a point that I agree with, in that Roger Goodell says the reason they want to put this in is because they want to do whatever they need to do to make the game more exciting. Well, that's not true, because if it was true, you wouldn't have took 10 yards off the kickoff, so
right.
Everything's a touchback, and the receivers or the cornerbacks, whoever's back there, doesn't have a run and start anymore. So obviously, I mean, you don't want to do everything you want to do to make the game exciting.
Exactly.
And another point is that this somehow will make teams want to go for it more, and I don't see that at all. I don't see how making this rule makes a team any better off going for it, because you're going to have the same result that you had before.
I agree. I don't know. I don't think it's going to pass. I don't think there's any way that it goes through.
If you want to do something
logic
different,
doesn't work.
If you want to do something different, do something different. Make the rule or the end game different than it would be before.
And they say it's an outdated rule. You can still drop kick the ball in the NFL. If you want to drop kick the ball, you can do it.
Brady did it this year.
Very few times is it done.
Yeah.
But you can still do it. Leave the rule. Who cares if it takes another 10 seconds?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It speeds up the game. But one of the reasons I think it won't get done is because you know what happens during a field goal?
People rest. Commercials.
You have commercials before the field goal, and you have commercials after the field goal.
Yep.
So you're taking money away from the NFL.
Think
get rid of it.
Think about the Super Bowl. Before each extra point, going to be a minute of commercials. That's $8 million. After the extra point, that's $8 million. Every extra point, $16 million in commercial money.
Yeah, I can't see them getting rid of it for that reason. Even though I think it's probably not a terrible idea, because then I wouldn't have to watch some of those commercials.
I say leave it alone. Leave it alone. But we're about to hit a break. We'll be back. Here in the 10 o'clock hour, we're going to talk to David Clemens, Maycap County High School boys varsity basketball coach. So y'all be looking out for that, and refresh your browser, and we'll be right back.